What if Obi-Wan didn't leave Anakin on Mustafar? These two folks here are Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. At one point, the pair had a brotherly relationship within the Jedi Order. However, following Anakin's turn to the dark side, their relationship took an unfortunate twist, with each of them ending up on opposite sides of a galactic conflict. The two engaged in an epic lightsaber battle on the lava planet of Mustafar that was backed up by an absolutely banger soundtrack, and Anakin ends up becoming overconfident and losing to his former master at the end of the duel. As Anakin burned alive on the side of the black sands of the volcano plains, Obi-Wan picked up Anakin's old lightsaber and left him there to suffer. Our story begins on the lava fields of Mustafar, where Anakin is burning alive. Obi-Wan looks at his former Padawan dying before him, and his heart breaks. Rather than abandon Anakin like he does in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan uses the Force to put out the blazing fires on Anakin's body. Then, he picks up Anakin and fireman carries him away from the lava, taking him back to Padme's ship. Obi-Wan also grabs Padme with the Force and makes a run for it, taking R2 and C-3PO with him. Obi-Wan then navigates Padme's ship to Polis Massa, where he meets Yoda. Anakin is brought into urgent care, and Padme gives birth to the twins. In this story, Obi-Wan and Yoda let Padme know that Anakin is alive, so she doesn't die of sadness. Anakin screams in pain as the droids work on him before finally passing out and being immersed in a bacta tank to soothe his injuries. How do these events impact the remainder of the Star Wars saga? Let's keep going and find out. After Padme gives birth to the twins, Obi-Wan goes to visit Anakin, who wakes up from his pain-induced slumber. Obi-Wan informs him of the birth of his children and that Padme is safe, no thanks to his actions. Anakin said that it wasn't him that did this, but everything that happened because Obi-Wan turned Padme against him. He also yells that the Jedi Order was corrupt and that he had seen through their lies. Anakin reaches out his mechanical arm and force chokes Obi-Wan, but shortly after collapses with exhaustion once again. Obi-Wan sighs, and then he goes to see Yoda again. Obi-Wan tells Yoda that he has no idea what he's going to do with Anakin, and that he almost regrets saving him. Yoda tells him that he had done the right thing, and that eventually, the Force would show them the proper way to go. Perhaps once Anakin had met his children, he would feel differently. When Padme is ready to leave the hospital, she takes the babies back to the lakeside cottage on Naboo. Yoda leaves for Dagobah to go into exile, knowing that he will have little impact on this situation. He must begin his own training for the time when the Skywalker children would need to be taught in the ways of the Force. Anakin stays on Polis Massa, recovering under the supervision of Obi-Wan, who continues to try and get him to remember their brotherly love. However, it seems that Anakin has been so brainwashed by Palpatine that he can't even come to terms with the fact that Obi-Wan is selflessly looking out for him. Anakin believes that Obi-Wan is just trying to recruit him back into the Jedi Order for his own interests, and that Anakin will be looked down upon if he joins again. As Anakin gets stronger, the medics on Polis Massa continue to take care of him, and they give him the best cybernetic technology to help him walk again. He's also given better breathing apparatus than in his iconic black suit, giving him less of a wheeze than he had in the original trilogy. Anakin's voice remains the same, but is slightly distorted by the mechanics of his reconstructed vocal cords. Anakin frequently tries to attack Obi-Wan, but each time he does, the doctors on Polis Massa subdue him with anesthetics that put him back to sleep. It only pains Obi-Wan to see his friend in this state, but he knows that if he leaves, Anakin will only slip further into the dark side's grasp. Meanwhile, after Palpatine's visit to Mustafar, he realizes that Anakin is nowhere to be found. He knows that Obi-Wan must have taken him away, and he commands that all of his clones scour the galaxy until they find that Jedi. Palpatine also summons his newly recruited Grand Inquisitor and tells him to hunt for Anakin as well. Palpatine also creates a tip line that would go directly to the Imperial military and provides the incentive of a sizable amount of credits to anyone who could provide information about the whereabouts of any Jedi. With the entire galaxy hunting for Anakin, Palpatine is certain that his apprentice will soon return to him, ready to serve at his side. On Naboo, Padme continues to oversee the upbringings of her children. She takes a break from politics to attend to the needs of her babies, and Representative Biggs takes her place in the Senate for a temporary period. She keeps in touch with Obi-Wan, wondering about Anakin's status and whether or not he's made any progress in returning to the light. Unfortunately, Obi-Wan informs her that he's still resisting his pleas. However, Obi-Wan lets Padme know that Anakin is doing much better in terms of physical health. One of the doctors on Polis Massa sees the advertisement about a reward for anyone who had information about Jedi or Anakin Skywalker. The doctor frequently heard Obi-Wan conversing with Padme and Anakin, addressing Anakin by name. He also knows that his patient is exactly who the Empire is looking for, and so is his caretaker. And he knows that a little bit of extra funding could do well for their small medical outfit post. So The Doctor reports Anakin and Obi-Wan to the tip line. This tip is passed up all the way to the Grand Inquisitor's office because the clones are uncertain whether or not it's real. Grand Inquisitor also sees that Polis Massa is in the Outer Rim, just like Mustafar, and he finds it kind of suspicious that that was where Anakin and Obi-Wan were last sighted, in the Outer Rim on Mustafar. He at least believes that it would be prudent to visit the facility and see if there is any validity to the claims of the presence of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Finally, on Polis Massa, Anakin has recovered enough strength to be able to walk confidently on his new legs. His burns have also healed significantly because of the early Bacta treatment, and he even starts to grow back some hair. His eyes are still yellow with Sith fury. Whenever Obi-Wan visits his private quarters, Anakin tries to attack him, so Obi-Wan usually just leaves. As long as Anakin knew that Obi-Wan was there, Obi-Wan was satisfied. In Obi-Wan's spare time, he meditates and practices his own relationship with the Force, while also practicing with his lightsaber. Obi-Wan and Padme still remain in touch, and Obi-Wan sees how rapidly Luke and Leia are growing up. One day, while Obi-Wan is meditating, he sensed a presence in the Force that emanated evil, and it was approaching the outpost. He also senses a multitude of clone soldiers approaching. Obi-Wan's heart drops, and he runs towards Anakin quickly. Obi-Wan knows that they have been found by the Empire, and he tries to convince Anakin to leave with him quickly. Anakin, however, merely laughs. He welcomes the arrival of the Empire and knows that that means that Sidious is looking for him and hadn't abandoned him. Anakin lifts up Obi-Wan with the Force and chokes him, which Obi-Wan is not expecting. Anakin is so angry with Obi-Wan that he snaps his neck, killing his former Jedi brother. When the Grand Inquisitor arrives on Polis Massa and lands, Anakin is there waiting, and he throws the body of Obi-Wan to the ground in front of him. The clones pick up the body and take it onto the ship, and the Grand Inquisitor bows before Vader. Vader strides towards the ship and informs the Grand Inquisitor that he will be taking control. The Grand Inquisitor obliges after forking over the Imperial credits to the Doctor, who had provided the Empire with the information. When Vader returns to Coruscant, he's greeted as a hero by the Imperial military. They've heard about his endurance against Jedi insurrectionists, and they've also heard about how he triumphed over his former master. Anakin is also seen as a hero of the Empire for leading the assault on the Jedi Temple that squashed the, quote, Jedi coup, unquote, against Palpatine. Palpatine even greets Anakin himself, giving him a Medal of Honor for his actions further the goals of the Empire. Palpatine is pleased and dressed in his red Sith robes when he does so, further rubbing the victory of the Sith in over the remaining Jedi in the galaxy. Padme sees this broadcast to the galaxy, and she has mixed emotions. She's incredibly angry with her husband, who had killed somebody that had been a good friend. But she was also happy to see that the father of her children had survived. Because of these mixed feelings, she does the only thing that she believes is prudent in this situation. She calls Yoda on a secure channel and asks him for help. Yoda hears this news and is incredibly disturbed. He had felt the passing of Obi-Wan into the Force, but hadn't known the cause of his death. Now that he knew, his heart was saddened. Another Jedi comrade had been disposed of by the hand of death that called itself the Empire. There was only one solution that Yoda could think of. He knew that it was time to train Padme's children so that one day they would be able to face their father and his twisted master. Yoda reaches out in the Force to all of the remaining Jedi in the galaxy that he can sense, attempting to convey the urgency of the situation through the Force. If they could hear his call, he pleads that they come to Dagobah and help prepare for a second attempt on the Emperor's life. Reluctantly, Padme agrees to send her children to Yoda and have them train. Perhaps they would be able to convert Vader back into the man that she once knew. Hey folks, if you're enjoying this story, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications as we update this channel weekly with new What If content. Now, back to the story. When the children arrive at Yoda's hut on Dagobah, they're already greeted by a few surviving light side users. Yoda is there, and so is Cal Kestis and Kanan Jarrus. Ahsoka is also training in the swamps alongside Grogu's rescuer, Kelleran Beck. Grogu sits beside Yoda, gawking at the various life forms of the planet that he can eat. Padme drops her children off with teary eyes, saying that she knows that Yoda will take good care of them. She then leaves because her kids are out of the picture. She can take back her place in the Senate and joins Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Senator Chuchi in pushing back against the militaristic policies of the Imperial government. Oh, and Representative Binks occasionally chimes in too, but we all know Jar Jar. We know he isn't actually saying much. To avoid public suspicion, Padme tells the galaxy that children had been sent to an Outer Rim boarding school in order to have a better education out of the public eye, which everyone seems to believe. Anakin sees Padme back in the Senate, and he feels his heart drop. He doesn't know how to react to seeing his wife again, and the fact that he had not participated in the upbringing of his children. Palpatine reassures Vader that he made the right choice. He now serves a greater cause than himself. Anakin's personal power had grown substantially, and he was beloved by both citizens and the clone soldiers. But Anakin still remains conflicted. For years, this group of Jedi trains together under Yoda. Yoda is exceptionally pleased with the progress made by Luke and Leia in the ways of the Jedi. Grogu continues to, be Grogu. Kelleran and Kanan further their knowledge in the Force alongside of Ahsoka, and Cal Kestis joins this group as well after a few weeks. Yoda trains him alongside the Skywalker children, knowing that his training as a Padawan had been incomplete and that he had forgotten many of the Force abilities that he had learned during the traumatic events of Order 66. All of these Jedi train valiantly, and Yoda gifts Luke and Leia the lightsabers of fallen Jedi that he picked up following Order 66, after the two go through the Darkside Cave. Yoda believes that they are ready to help carry on the Jedi legacy, and that they deserve to bear the weapons of their predecessors. In the same breath, Vader also forges his own lightsaber, going through the Sith process of bleeding his crystal in the Sith catacombs on Mustafar. He feels immense pain, seeing all of his worst fears realized in visions before him, and his crystal turns the signature crimson of the Sith. After 5 years of training in the shadows, Yoda believes that this ragtag group of Jedi he's assembled has progressed enough to at least give the Emperor a difficult time, especially if they surprised him. Yoda contacts Padme and again requests that she send covert transport to Dagobah to help them get off-world. Padme obliges, and after a few days, an old Corellian freighter arrives to pick them up. Grogu stays on Dagobah, still far too young to face the most evil Sith Lord in the galaxy. Funny enough, when the Jedi arrive on board, they're greeted by a young Han Solo and a scruffy Chewbacca by his side. Han indicates that he's no fan of the Empire either, and when the senator offered him a job that paid lots of credits, he happily obliged. He didn't know that he'd be working with these hokey-pokey Force guys, but a dollar was a dollar, right? He blasts off to Coruscant, and the Jedi meditate in preparation for their assaults on the Emperor of the Galaxy. Palpatine, using his Sith alchemy, is able to foresee the coming of these Jedi survivors. He tells Vader and the Inquisitorius to be ready, knowing that they will attempt to enter his office, just as Yoda did during Revenge of the Sith. The Jedi, after all, weren't very creative with their entrances. They believed that the element of surprise would take Palpatine and the other Darkside users off guard. They all prepare themselves in the office, eagerly anticipating the opportunity to kill some more of their Jedi opponents. After Han Solo successfully lands on Coruscant with no questions asked, he lands the ship and picks up some supplies. The Jedi contingent stealthily departs on the landing pad, and they manage to haggle with a nearby Duros for the use of his hover vehicle. Well, haggle might not be the right word. It involves the use of some Jedi mind tricks for convincing the Duros, but they end up doing it nonetheless, despite the unethical nature of their actions. They are trying to take out the Emperor of the Galaxy, after all. They fly the hover vehicle to the Senate building and depart, making their way stealthily into the Senate building. Yoda shows them the way to the Emperor's office, which has remained since Yoda's first attempt to usurp Palpatine. When they arrive, they open the Emperor's door with the Force and quickly dispose of his royal guards, just like Yoda did in Revenge of the Sith. Palpatine swirls around in his massive office chair, cackling at the group of Jedi as he does so. Then, from the doors of the other side of his office, the Inquisitors walk into Palpatine's presence, led by the Imperial hero, Darth Vader. Things are about to get intense. Palpatine tells the Jedi that they're all foolish, and that he had foreseen everything that they had planned. He had eagerly awaited the chance to kill even more of the Jedi, and he laughs at the prospect of doing so. He fires Force lightning in their direction, and Yoda absorbs it with the Force. The other Jedi ignite their blades and attack the Inquisitors, who are thirsty for light-side blood. Anakin has absolutely no qualms with disposing quickly of Kelleran Beck and Cal Kestis, who he impales with his lightsaber after Force choking. But his stomach drops when he sees Ahsoka fighting alongside Luke, Leia, and Kanan. Immediately, his mind flashes back to the Clone Wars when he had trained Ahsoka, and the pain that he had felt when she had left the Order. Anakin shines through Vader, reminding him of his past. Furthermore, seeing Luke and Leia battling the Inquisitors reminded Vader of Padme, who he knew was still alive and well. Whenever he had tried to speak with her in the hallway, she had avoided him, giving Vader the cold shoulder. Vader supposed that this had been understandable based on his actions, but he was still angry nonetheless. Anakin was certain that Obi-Wan had still turned Padme against him. Kanan battles with the Grand Inquisitor, and just like in Rebels, he defeats the Grand Inquisitor. It's a long, hard battle, but eventually Kanan emerges on top. Sadly, however, the Emperor blasts Force lightning at him after his tough battle, and Kanan ends up succumbing to the fury of Palpatine. The battle rages on, and Yoda fires the Force lightning back in Palpatine's direction that he had absorbed earlier. Palpatine merely cackles and redirects it towards the remaining Jedi with his hands. Ahsoka is hit hard, falling to the ground in pain. Luke and Leia both begin to writhe on the floor, completely covered in the lightning. The Inquisitors take a moment to laugh at their Jedi opponents, scoffing at how these young and inexperienced Jedi were trying to take on the Emperor. Vader looks down, and his stomach turns in horror. These were the people that he had once loved, and now here they were, once again, on the floor at the hands of his master. Vader believes that if Palpatine truly cared for him, he would spare the lives of these Jedi. Vader looks at his master directly in the eye and requests that he stop. Vader states that these remaining Jedi could be valuable assets to their cause, possibly even being able to one day serve as Inquisitors. Yoda stares at Vader, shocked at this ounce of mercy that was coming through the Dark Lord. So did Ahsoka, who had thought that her former master was completely dead, replaced by this abomination that called himself Vader. Palpatine looks back at Vader, considering his point of view. Then he smiles. He tells Vader to kill the remaining Jedi and prove his loyalty to the Empire. Vader looks back, appalled. How could Palpatine force him to make this choice? Vader thought that Palpatine had actually cared about him. Obviously, he'd only cared about what he could use Vader for. Once again, Vader pleaded with his master to reconsider. For his insolence, Palpatine blasts Anakin with a small shock of Force lightning. Because of Anakin's mechanical limbs and breathing system, it cripples him greatly. While the Emperor is distracted, Yoda force pushes him backwards and catches him off guard before promptly igniting his lightsaber and placing it to Palpatine's neck, telling him to surrender. Sidious laughs and tells Yoda to give in to his hatred and kill him. But Yoda responds that killing him at this point wouldn't be an act of hate. It would be an act of mercy for the rest of the galaxy. Before Sidious can blast him with the Force again, Yoda decapitates the Emperor, saving Anakin from the impossible choice that he had been placed in. Yoda had seen the spark of compassion in Vader, and he had decided that that was worth fighting for. For the first time since the Battle of Mustafar, Anakin felt that somebody legitimately cared for him. Yoda force pushes back the remaining Inquisitors, who are shocked by Yoda's defeat of the Emperor. He gives them each the option to either rejoin the light side or to leave and never return. A few of the Inquisitors end up running away from Yoda, but some actually stay, moved by his majesty and composure in the Force. Yoda comes and helps out Luke and Leia, and Ahsoka manages to stand up on her own. She extends her hand out to Anakin, who, once again, feels like he has a community of friends around him. Anakin goes up to Yoda and sobs, absolutely devastated by the destruction that he has caused as the Dark Lord, known as Vader. Anakin thanks Yoda for saving the life of him and his family, and he says that he has no idea how to repay him. Yoda hugs Anakin back and says that there's no need for repayment, and that he senses Anakin shining through the facade of Vader that the Emperor had twisted Anakin into. As the aftermath of the Emperor's death plays out, much of the galaxy rejoices. Palpatine had been a tyrant, and his defeat to Yoda was celebrated by planets that had remained loyal to the tenets of the Republic. Yoda returns to the Jedi Temple and calls for the return of all remaining Jedi, which are few. However, he knows that he has a solid team to help him rebuild. After seeing Yoda's compassion towards Anakin, Ahsoka's faith in the Order is restored, and she agrees to come help train the next generation of Jedi. Grogu is brought back to Coruscant from Dagobah as well by some of the other Jedi that are in the Outer Rim. In the Senate, a vote is held on whether or not to dissolve the Empire and return to the Republic. Many senators hold opinions on both sides, but after countless deliberations, the representative democracy of the Republic is restored. Padme is elected to be the new Chancellor, and she works on new laws that demilitarize the imperial body that had once been called the Empire. How do these events impact the conclusion of our story? In the end, the Republic is restored. Anakin has much atonement to do, but he begins to come to terms with his mistakes. Anakin helps in the training of his children, and he expresses how sorry he is that he wasn't there for them earlier in life. Luke and Leia are quick to forgive, as they're still fairly young, and they help to complete Anakin's life. After seeing Anakin's return to the light, Padme reaches out to him and begins to reestablish a connection. While the love that they once had is never truly rekindled, Anakin is at least able to let her know that he knows his actions were evil. Padme acknowledges this shift, and she starts to gain respect for Anakin again, especially as he proves himself to truly be a Jedi. She's also busy managing the transition period in the galaxy. While there are some Imperial holdouts that fight against the new government, the galaxy is mostly in a state of peace. The Republic has returned, and the Jedi Order begins to rebuild itself. Things seem to be going well. Perhaps now, with the deaths of the Emperor, light could finally return to a galaxy that had been shrouded in darkness for decades.